They say Lagos never sleeps. Tonight, its roar was louder than usual. At a busy intersection where dust, neon light, and exhaust fumes danced in the humid air, traffic crawled. Danfo buses lurched, motorbikes zigzagged, street hawkers shouted. In the glow of orange street lamps and neon signs, a barefoot girl crouched at the curb, her toes curled around shards of broken plastic and torn fabric. Her name was Itoro Ukpong, dark ebony skin shimmering slightly from sweat, her hair braided close, face sharp, cheekbones edged with grime. She knelt beside a rusted heap of refuse, rummaging through torn shoes, flip-flops mostly, some worn sandals. One pair caught her eye. Battered, leather cracked, the stitching frayed but oddly familiar. She eased a rag from her small cloth bag, wiped off dust and muck from the leather. Her hands bled, cracked skin from previous nights in the open. Yet she treated the shoe with tenderness. She slipped it on her foot. It rubbed. She grimaced but forced a breath, adjusted it until it stayed. Around her, people passed without looking. A mother tugged her child's hand away. A young man smirked, recording on his phone. Others stared, some with pity, most with indifference. Itoro ignored them, focusing on the shoe's shape, its weight anything to hold on to something. Not far behind the tinted windows of a sleek black SUV, Tife Onakoya stared out at the same curb. CEO, billionaire. Tall, well-groomed, impeccable suit. His skin a rich dark tone. Features refined. Straight nose, high brows, eyes that looked haunted. He had been stuck in traffic after a frantic board meeting, but when he saw Itoro pick up that torn shoe, something not twisted him in the chest. A flashback hit light flickered in memory. A young woman, laughing in sunshine, wearing those same shoes. He was a boy then. He remembers her voice, her kindness, the weight of her shoes when she walked. His mother, Imaobang, she had loved those shoes, wore them until the leather split. He buried her with them 20 years ago. Tife's jaw tightened. "Stop," he said to his driver. The SUV halted, blocking the lane. Horns blared behind. The driver glanced in the rear mirror, surprised. "Let me out," Tife said, voice husky. He swung the door, shoes crunching on gravel as he stepped out, his dress shoes contrasting with Itoro's torn one. He approached her as the crowd parted. Itoro sensed his presence. The rag fell from her hand. She looked up wide eyes, fear, recognition. She backed away, still holding the shoe. Her bare feet bled faintly beneath the dust. Her dress, thin, patched, stained, clung to her. Tife reached into his inner coat pocket, palmed a matching shoe, the one he had kept, boxed, hidden away. The same worn design, same cracked leather, same stitching pattern. His heart pounded. "It's yours," he said softly, voice almost broken. "That was your mother's shoe." She froze. 1,000 emotions flickered, disbelief, hope, fear. The crowd hushed. Someone gasped. Cameras clicked. Her lips parted. Before she could answer, she turned and ran, her rag left on the ground. Tife stood, clutching the matching shoe to his chest, rain of dust and fumes swirling around him. He watched her disappear into the throng of feet, hips and umbrellas, light bouncing off car mirrors. The soul in his hand felt heavy with memory. A driver yelled. Traffic backed up. Tife blinked, overwhelmed. The matching shoe dropped from his hand. He caught it, held it as if holding the past. He looked at the shoe again, scuffed, worn, painful. He whispered into the rushing air. Who is this girl? And how did she come to carry the shoes of someone he buried 20 years ago? Who is this girl? And how did she get the shoes of a woman Tife buried 20 years ago? Itoro Ukpong awoke before dawn often, though she was no longer a child in that routine. She remembered mornings in the village near Calabar, roosters crowing, palm, trees whispering in the breeze, dew on the banana leaves. But now the air smelled of fuel and fear. The roadside mats where she slept were rough, cold. In the village, she had lived with her Aunt Isi, a stern woman whose laughter was rare. Her black skin, dark like polished ebony, still bore shine from the sun, but her eyes were heavy with worry. Itoro's hair was braided tight. Her face, even at 6, carried shadows under the eyes from hunger or longing. Her clothes, simple wrappers, patched, ankles exposed, bare feet in red mud. Her walk carried a gentle limp, one sandal gone, the other torn. Her father, a man with rich promises but empty footprints, had abandoned them years ago when Itoro was barely 3. He said he meant to return from Lagos. Her mother, Imobong, answered a church outreach invitation in Lagos once. It was dark when she left. Sunday passed. Monday. Weeks. Then months. Aunt Essie wouldn't speak much of it, only that her sister was called away and lost. Itoro believed her mother would return, and the torn shoes were all she had to prove she had once walked with someone who loved her. School was a daily battle. Itoro walked barefoot over jagged stones, places where other children had sneakers, shiny sandals. They stared. Some snickered. A girl called her trash foot. Another whispered that her mother must have stolen something to afford shoes if she ever came back. Yet Itoro carried her mother's torn shoes wrapped in a cloth under her arm or in a ragged school satchel, almost worshipping them. She'd trace heel cracks with her fingers, stitch them with coarse thread when she could borrow needle and cotton. Those shoes smelled of old leather and earth and hope. One morning in class, the teacher called children to stand in line, check their shoes. Itoro refused to walk up. Rather, she stood behind, clutching the shoes close to her chest. A bully from the front kicked the pair. Scuff. She gasped, tears brimming. Blood, from the feet where stones pressed through the sole, stained the soil. Aunt Essie patched the shoes when Itoro came home, but no patch hid the pain. Yet Itoro spoke only one truth. When mother returns, she will wear shoes like these again. Aunt Essie's face cracked with sorrow, but she could not promise more. Present-day Lagos. Itoro is older now, perhaps 18, thin, ragged, still dark ebony in skin, cheekbones sharper, eyes haunted but determined. The torn shoes strain her feet. She spends mornings scavenging plastic bottles at traffic lights, hands stained, arms exposed, t-shirt torn, hair unkempt. Nights under verandas, malls, churches, any place to stay dry. She sews the cracked stitching with whatever she finds, thread from discarded cloth, needle from seamstress throws, scraps of leather from waste bins. Each stitch is hopeful, each patch a prayer. The shoes, falling apart, but she keeps them, her only anchor. Meanwhile, in Victoria Island, Tife Onakoya sits in his high-rise office, walls of glass overlooking Lagos Lagoon. The CEO's skin is dark black and flawless, features sharp and controlled, his suit expensive, tie perfect, posture straight, but his face betrays unrest. He holds the matching shoe, wrapped in tissue, under his desk, calls his private investigator, Mr. Obasi. Obasi, a methodical man, dark skin, salt and pepper beard, eyes cold yet curious, arrives the next morning with a sleek briefcase. Tife lays out the matching shoe, telling Obasi everything he saw at the intersection. Obasi inspects the scars, the sole's wear, the stitching. He compares it with some photos old, yellowed, maybe from Tife's childhood. Something in the leather pattern, the way a stitch was made, strikes him. Tife tells Obasi of a dream, his mother, alive, walking back in the torn shoes. But Obasi is pragmatic. He binds the matching shoe carefully, then asks discreetly for any DNA sample that could be used. The torn shoe, it must have traces. Sweat, blood, skin. Perhaps things that can speak louder than memory. Obasi travels to Itoro's part of Lagos. He lingers at places where bottles are collected. He notices a young woman, cleaning bottles, with dark ebony skin, slim bones, slowed steps from barefoot walking. He watches discreetly as she tends to her shoes sitting on a curb, sewing, patching. Itoro's face in her ragged dress, raw and real. Obasi waits until she drops a small piece of leather from her shoe patch into a plastic bag. He retrieves it when she leaves. That night, he runs tests in a small lab back in the city. Patterns emerge. The heel's leather origin trace. Some fibers matching leather he inspected in the matching shoe. Then there is skin DNA light, small markers. Obasi sits in his lab coat, breathing shallow. The markers strongly suggest someone in Tife's own household, someone who had intimate contact with mother's shoes in the family home, shed skin cells on those shoes decades ago. Tife sleeps little. Memories of his mother's laughter, her hands, her walking through their family home flood him, the places he had walked as a child, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her voice calling him. That evening, Itoro returns to her makeshift bedding under a bridge. She holds the stripped and patched torn shoe in her lap. She sews by moonlight, the needle sharp, her hands calloused. She pauses, hears distant car horn, thinks of someone seeing her, maybe kindness, maybe danger. She holds the shoe, whispers, "Mother, I keep them for you." She presses her forehead to the patchwork leather. A single tear trails down her cheek, blood mingling with dust. The city's lights flicker above, distant and cold. Meanwhile, Obasi calls Tife quietly. "Sir, we got something." Tife's breath catches. The DNA matches someone in your household. His heart pounds. Could it be the old caretaker or someone he trusts? Betrayal feels possible. The investigator finds DNA on the torn shoes that matches someone in Tife's own household. Tife Onakoya sat behind his glass office desk, overlooking the Lagos skyline at twilight. The sky a bruised purple fading into inky night. His palms were flat on the polished wood surface, his breathing shallow. He rarely paused in his schedule. There was always another meeting, another call, another project. Yet tonight, something lodged in his chest, a weight he had not felt in years, longing. He hadn't thought about his mother Imobong in vivid detail for a long time. Just shadows, fragments, her laugh, her scent, a dress fluttering. Since his father's remarriage, since being sent abroad as a teenager, he had buried those memories behind spreadsheets and rising stock prices. But now, seeing the torn shoe, the matching pair, had cracked his carefully sealed life. His childhood in the Onakoya mansion came back in flashes. Stepmother Osarem, pale-faced and cold in her loveless elegance, organizing his schedule even before his first day of school. Lessons abroad, London, then New York. Coursework, conferences, investors, boardrooms. They told him his mother died in childbirth, that she had passed before he could remember her face. He accepted it. He believed the narrative. But now, the shoes said otherwise. Tife rose from his chair, walking through his apartment office, past portraits. A younger father in crisp agbada. Tife as a child receiving top medals. He paused before a photo of his mother, worn with age, sepia-toned, half hidden in a drawer. Her dark ebony skin luminous even in faded print. Her eyes kind. Their lips parted in laughter. He pressed a finger to the frame, heart-pounding, the lie of her death echoing louder than any boardroom applause. In that moment he realized something had been hidden from him, something important said long ago and buried. He went to his father's study, journals, leather-bound, one photo album, another box sealed with his name. The locked box was heavy. He tried to pry it open, found a key hidden under lining of the journal. Inside, letters in his mother's handwriting, receipts, and a small calendar with dates circled. A note, "If I don't return, remember me by my shoes." His breath caught. The calendar entry for her trip to Lagos, the church outreach. His childhood belief crumbled. Meanwhile, in a quiet part of Lagos, Itoro Ukpong crept through dusty alleys with one thin plastic bag. Her stomach hollow, her limbs weak. She had walked miles from the bottle collection points. Hunger and fatigue tugged at her eyelids. At a junction, she collapsed, barefoot feet bleeding. A kind-hearted elderly woman, Mama Joy, discovered her. Dark skin wrinkled with time, eyes soft, wearing a faded wrapper, smelling of soap and plantain. Mama Joy carried Itoro into her small, cramped room, washed her feet with cool water, wrapped a tattered blanket around her shoulders. Mama Joy noticed the torn shoe on Itoro's foot. "Those shoes," she said, voice trembling. Itoro looked up hungry, ashamed. "Where did you get them?" Mama Joy asked. Itoro did not answer. Mama Joy nodded, lips pressed. She produced an old photo from decades back. A young woman, thin, dark ebony skin, beautiful eyes, walking down a dirt road, wearing shoes nearly identical. The same cracked stitching pattern. "I once helped a young woman like her," Mama Joy whispered. "She left shoes just like these behind." Itoro's heart wrenched. She pressed the shoes close, blood and dust mingling. She felt seen, not mocked for once. Mama Joy offered food, carried bottles she collected, gave Itoro safe shelter for the night. Itoro slept with her torn shoes by her side, a knot of hope forming in her chest. Back in his boardroom, Tife listened to his directors, stern men and women in crisp suits, dark ebony skin-sharp features, voices echoing in his ears. "We've noticed unexplained absences, sir. Your mind seems elsewhere. Revenue projections are slipping. Morale is faltering." He sat silent, face drawn. He imagined telling them the truth that he was remembering something he never wanted to admit. Instead, he nodded. "I will handle it," he said, voice flat. Later, as he reviewed news footage, his phone buzzed with alerts. A local station had posted a clip. A soup kitchen distributing hot meals, volunteers lining up. Itoro was there, scraping rice, handing out bowls, wearing her torn shoes. The camera lingered on her feet. A reporter spoke. "The girl with torn shoes has become the face of unseen Lagos." He saw her, the same posture, the same shoes. His hands trembled. He muted the sound. That night, Tife stood alone in his apartment. Dark-skinned hands clasped, the matching shoe in his palm. He wanted to call out to her to reach her. He dialed his driver, his assistant, each ring echoing dread. He resolved. At dawn he'd send his car. Pick her up, offer help, find her identity. But morning came with news. Itoro was gone. The squat where she slept abandoned. Mama Joy's small hut locked. No sign of her. The space she left smelled of biscuits, rain, dreams. Tife stared at the matching shoe on his desk, mourning not just its leather, but all the years he had lost believing the story told him. He sends a car to pick her up, but when they arrive, she's gone. Tife Onakoya stood in the vast drawing room of Onakoya Mansion, the walls richly paneled in dark teak, the floor a polished marble cold under his expensive leather shoes. The chandeliers overhead cast soft reflections on the crystal decanters arranged on side tables. He stared at his stepmother, Madame Osoreme, seated across from him in a high-back armchair. The air between them was thick with something neither had dared speak in years. Osoreme, golden bronze skin, radiant yet tired, hair perfectly styled in a wig, layers of makeup still sharp around her eyes, wore a rich silk dress, emerald green, flowing, embroidered, her nails long, tips painted, jewelry subtle but expensive. Tife, in his tailored dark suit, tie loosened, his face taut, looked like a man wrestling ghosts. He held up the matching shoe leather cracked in familiar places, the sole's curve, the stitching pattern, heel wear, voice unsteady. "You said she died. You said mother died in childbirth. So why did these shoes survive? Why are they here?" Osoreme's chest tightened. She drew in a breath. She did not rise. The room was silent, but for the ticking of a tall clock. A servant withdrew behind a curtain. She placed both hands on her lap, fingers interlaced, voice low. I lied," she admitted, tears glossing her eyes. "Your mother did not die in childbirth. She disappeared." Tife's throat, parched. Osoreme looked away, her voice trembling. "After she left for Lagos, after that church outreach, I saw her vanish. No word, no message. And the house, people began asking questions. You were just a boy." She paused, wiping a tear. "I told everyone she had died to protect you. To protect the Onakoya name." Flashback. Young Imio Bong, dark ebony skin soft in the lamplight, laughing with children, feet in worn shoes, knuckles rough from labor, heart fearless. Osoreme appears, face pale and set, a silk scarf about her neck, her eyes cold as she watches the respect others give Imio Bong. Over time, the glances become whispers, soft criticisms of her generosity, her softness, her being too poor, too kind. The Onakoya staff, the drivers, the neighbors. She gives, she spends, she weakens the reputation. Osoreme's resentment swells. The day Imio Bong vanishes, rumor spreads of betrayal. Rumors, Osoreme did nothing, or perhaps more. In the present, Tife's world tilts. The confession replays in his mind. Disappearing mother, false death, stolen identity of pain. His pulse races. He stumbles, catching himself on a side table. The matching shoe trembles in his hand. Osoreme sits, head bowed, guilt heavy as lead. Meanwhile, in a dusty roadside buka by the Lagos Apapa corridor, Itoro Ukpong kneels on plastic stool, hands busy stirring pepper soup and fetching mugs of water. Her dark ebony skin is sun-kissed and streaked with grime. Her eyes, though tired, carry a spark. Hair unkempt, clothes faded and patched, shoes torn and covered in stitches she made with scavenged thread. Her voice soft as she apologizes for a spill. A gray-haired lawyer, Mr. Adewale, sits at an umbrella-shaded table nearby, talking quietly on the phone. Tife's childhood lawyer, once close to Imaobong, now older, kind-faced, dark skin, wrinkled with time. He watches Itoro, eyes sharp. Some customers laugh at her shoes, others ignore. Itoro slips away to a corner, brings out the stained, torn shoe, examines the stitching, mutters to herself about my mother's shoe. Mr. Adewale leans forward, troubled. He glances at his phone. He remembers Imeobong telling him once, "If I ever disappear, don't let them lie to my child." That memory is weighty. Later, Mr. Adewale visits Tife in his office. Evening light filters through drapes, shadows on the walls. He holds a brittle envelope, yellowed with age. He hands Tife a letter, dated 2 decades earlier, written in Imeobong's elegant script. The paper margin has a lip imprint. The scent of old perfume lingers when Tife releases it. He opens it with trembling fingers. The letter, "My dearest Tife, if I cannot return, know this. I love you. I did this for you. There is a child I gave away to protect from evil within the mansion, one who carries my feet's memory. Keep faith in her, even when lies surround you." The words hit Tife like cold rain. He looks up at Osoreme still there, shadows on her face, tears glistening. Tife's heart hammers. Tife confronts Osoreme again. "You gave her away? My mother had body, another child?" Osoreme nods, her voice meek. "Yes. To the woman who cleaned her room. To someone I thought would be safe. I never believed someone would trace those shoes. I never believed she'd still care." Ino? Itoro? The possibilities spin. Tife steps back, absorbing the magnitude. Itoro might be more than just a poor girl. She might hold his blood, his mother's echo. Days pass. Tife moves carefully. He gathers photos, old staff rosters, letters. He remembers a housemaid who disappeared around the same time she had a baby. Itoro continues in the bucket soup shop. She works hard, saving coins. She sews the torn shoes again and again, each stitch a prayer, each repaired tear a promise. Sometimes she pauses, as if hearing her mother's voice in the wind. Then, one afternoon, Tife's phone rings. It is Obasi, his investigator. He sounds both cautious and excited. The DNA, from samples taken from both shoes, from skin fragments in the leather, combined with old staff DNA, has results. Tife holds his breath. Adewale, Osoreme, old house staff, his father's caretaker, all candidates. The DNA does not match his own siblings. It does not confirm a shared father, but it shows a match with Imeobong's bloodline somewhere in Osoreme's old staff. Tife's hands shake. Emotion burns. Relief, grief, wonder. Osoreme sits frozen, forehead sweating, guilt sharp in her eyes. Tife looks toward the door, toward the road where Itoro might walk by unaware. He resolves to find her. The DNA results arrive. The truth? Itoro is not his sister, but she is Imeobong's daughter. Tife Onakoya's car rolled over cracked roads heading toward Enugu early morning. The dawn's light barely lit the sky. He sat stiffly in the back seat, matching shoe wrapped carefully in soft cloth beside him. His mind raced with Osoreme's confession, with the letter, with all the pieces that now seemed to fit but still left gaps wide as chasms. He had traced a name, Nene, a former housemaid from his mother's time at Onakoya Mansion, fired abruptly almost 20 years ago. Her departure hushed, no explanation. Staff said she left in disgrace, others said she vanished. Now, Nene apparently lived in Enugu, simple, worn, faithful to her church, her faith her only comfort. Tife had called ahead, offered money, but more than money, promise of safety, respect, voice. As the car slowed into a dusty lane, he saw her at the church steps. Bent shoulders, dark ebony skin wrinkled with age, hands clasped, beads around her neck, skirt faded, blouse patched, hair gray, pulled back. Her face lined but with steady, knowing eyes. Tife stepped out, heart pounding. Nene looked up, recognition flickering. He approached. She greeted him with a nod, cautious, wary. Her voice was soft but firm. "Madam Nene," Tife said, "I need your truth." She studied him, the matching shoe peeking from cloth, the sun rising behind him, illuminating tears in his eyes. Nene swallowed, her voice cracked. She told him what she had carried in silence for years, the night Imeobong vanished. She had been sweeping the veranda. She had heard voices inside shouts. She peeked through a window. She saw it. Strong arms dragging Imeobong, her skin glistening in torchlight, blood or sweat sliding down her brow, the torn shoes left behind in the doorframe. She saw Osareme's silhouette. She saw guards, then screaming, then silence. Her hands shook. They said, if I ever speak, they will burn me, kill me. My children. They told me to forget. She had stayed silent for fear. Tife listened, his chest tight. The hurt, the betrayal, the injustice, but also something blooming. Validation. The edges of his mother, once blurry, sharpened. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Itoro Ukpong trudged through muddy alleys, bottles and plastic bags slung over her shoulder, the weight of her torn shoes pressed into her heels. Each step hurt. She had been talking to one of Tife's junior staff, someone, distributing flyers on radio outreach. Her eyes had lit up when she learned of the matching shoe. The staff had taken a photo of her with the torn shoe, promising to help. But someone saw. Half a block later, two men emerged out of dark doorway, their faces defined by shadows. They grabbed her arm. She screamed. The bottles dropped. She kicked, trying to run, but they overpowered her. They blindfolded her, dragged her into a vehicle. Itoro fought, praying, biting, scratching, but strength drained. Fear curdled in her stomach. Back in Enugu, Tife held Nene's trembling hands, his eyes red. He promised her protection. He promised justice. She nodded, hope faint, but there. He returned to Lagos, ringing phones, news tips, more old staff members contacting him, former drivers, cooks, gardeners. Some confirm Nene's story, some fear reprisal. He enacted plans. He called a press conference. Outside Tife's office, it rained softly. Cameras flashing. Microphones in faces. Tife stood on the podium, the matching shoe displayed behind glass. His voice resonant. This is not about wealth. It's about truth. My mother did not die. She was taken. This girl, he gestured to reporters' images of Itoro with the torn shoe, carries a piece of her story. I will not be silenced. The media lit up. Headlines streamed. Girl with the billionaire's shoes. Mystery of the disappeared mother. Onakoya's family secret exposed. Osareme, in her opulent mansion, watched on television, clutching a cushion, pale. She rose and declared denial. A tear escaped her makeup. These are lies, she said. Fabrications, nothing more. Then a photo surfaced. Social media blew. A grainy old photograph. Faded edges. Imeobong young. Dark ebony skin radiant. Holding a baby. The baby wore tiny sandals. And in her arms was the matching shoe just like Tife's. The baby's face hidden but the shoes unmistakable. The metadata dated it 20 years ago. Viewers gasped. Tife's heart thundered. The world stood still. Nene saw the photo too. Itoro's name burst into everyone's mouth. People connected dots. More journalism, more pressure. Late at night, in Tife's high-rise apartment, his phone buzzed. He saw the name Obasi, his investigator. The message, I found her. Imeobong is alive. His breath stopped. The matching shoe felt heavy in his hand. He looked at the photo of his mother in the old frame on his shelf. The letters, the stories, the torn shoes, all pointing to something more impossible than truth. The lawyer calls Tife. He found Imeobong. She's alive. Imeobong Onakoya lay half-conscious under a tattered mosquito net in a wooden hut by the riverbank. The dawn mist drifted across palm trees. Her dark ebony skin glistened faintly with dampness, her breathing shallow. A fisherman named Elder Udo found her lying near the river's edge, clothes stained, shoes missing, eyes barely open. He dragged her into his small rural clinic, a hut with thatched roof, wooden shutters, clay floor, jars of herbal potions. She was given water, roots, healing balm. She whispered fragments of a name. Osareme. Then drifted into silence. Weeks passed. Imeobong, with no identity papers, no name except Sister Mary, was taken in by a small convent in a remote village. Among sisters with dark black skin, bare feet or simple sandals, hair covered in white veils, the rhythms of prayer and service carved out days of hiding. She tended the garden, washed linens, fed vulnerable children, shared what little she had, but always, In quiet moments before dawn, after prayer, she thought of her daughter. The torn shoes she had sewn decades ago, the lullaby she used to hum, the ache in her heart. Back in Lagos, Itoro, still held by Osareme's agents, lay in a small locked room, hair tangled, skin smudged with dust, torn shoes by her side. She clutched an old hairpin one her mother had hidden in the matching shoesome. Years back, a gift she never knew until that moment. It was small, curved, sharp enough. Itoro worked the lock of the door with trembling fingers, pressed her back against rough wood, listened for footsteps. Heart pounding. She slipped the hairpin into the latch. Pain shot through her fingers. The door creaked. Darkness. She pushed. Smoke of fear in her lungs. She escaped into a narrow corridor. Stumbling. Bleeding. But free for now. Meanwhile, Tife Onakoya made his way through bumpy dirt roads toward the convent's church. He carried the matching shoe wrapped in cloth in his satchel. He wore a modest linen shirt, dark trousers, shoes polished, skin dark, perfectly contrasted with the dusty path. His face set, a mixture of resolve and desperate longing. He reached the wooden doors of the small rural church, breathing in wooden scent, incense, the gentle echo of psalms, voices of sisters. There, in the nave, he saw her sister Mary, her back to him, older now, posture bowed, but still regal in her quiet dignity. Dark ebony skin brown from sun, teeth faint when she smiled, eyes tired but kind. At the sight of the matching shoe, she froze. Tears welled, falling unbidden down her cheeks. The shoes, those worn and fragile shoes, were more than leather. They were memory, loss, love. She reached out, touching the shoe gently, tracing the stitching he recognized from childhood. Tife knelt beside her, voice breaking. "Mother?" he whispered. Ukpong's eyes closed. The world felt both shrinking and expanding, the weight of 2 decades in one breath. She confessed how she was betrayed, drugged, forced to vanish. How Osareme's ambition and fear led to lies, control over narrative, silencing of truth. How she watched, powerless, as baby Itoro was smuggled out by Nene, believing her child safer far away than under the Onakoya roof. At the same time, Itoro sprinted through alleys, rooftop shadows, avoiding agents. Her lungs burned, her feet raw. She held, her patch-torn shoes and hairpin, pain in each step. The city smelled of smoke, of fear, of rain. She turned a corner, but someone blocked her path. Rough hands grabbed at her, voices shouted. She fought, scratched, kicked. Darkness enveloped her again. But the hairpin, hidden in her shoe, glinted her mother's gift. Back at the church, Tiff raised his phone, live streaming, broadcasting the virgin confession, the reunion, the shoes that spoke loudly. Viewers climbed into the stream by thousands. Comments flooded. Where has she been all these years? Blessed reunion. Trash shoe girl deserves justice. The internet lit up, asking for Osareme's arrest, for truth to be told. The public rallied behind Itoro's image with the torn shoes, Sister Mary's bowed head, Tife's tears. The narrative shifting. No longer shame, but hope. Ukpong, weak but resolute, held the matching shoe up toward the camera. She spoke. "I gave birth to a daughter who still carries my steps." The sisters around her wept. The candlelight flickered in the church, as if the world paused for the weight of her truth. Then the message came. In Tife's phone, "She's escaped." His heart thundered. He thought of Itoro running free, hope uncoiling. But almost at dawn, a call from his investigator. "I'm sorry, sir. She's walked into a trap." His breath froze. Itoro finally escapes, but she walks into a trap laid by Osareme's most dangerous ally. The sun beat down mercilessly over Balagun Market, a living artery of Lagos chaos. Colors danced across stalls, head wraps, spices, tech gadgets, peppered meats, and the air crackled with the shouting of traders, the blaring of horns, the laughter of women haggling over ankara. In this sea of sound and sweat, Itoro Ukpong ran for her life. Her torn shoes barely clung to her feet. Her dress was soaked with sweat and dust, elbows, shoulders, crates, everything a blur as she darted through alleys. Behind her, the sharp clatter of boots, men shouting. Her lungs screamed, her mother's hairpin still clutched in her fist. She knocked over baskets of tomatoes, dodged moving bikes, leapt across a broken gutter. A seller cursed, others screamed. One man tried to grab her arm but saw the terror in her eyes and let her go. Cameras flashed, phones raised. The trash shoe girl was now a myth unfolding in real time. Inside a high-rise in Victoria Island, Tife Onakoya's face was fixed on a giant screen. A wall of Lagos surveillance cameras streamed footage zooming in, tracking her steps. He barked orders into a headset. His security team, dressed in plain clothes, fanned out. They had one task: find Itoro. Safe. Now. Across the room, Ukpong, now known publicly as Sister Mary, stared at a phone screen. She sat in her convent robe, tears tracing deep into her cheeks. A journalist live-streamed her softly whispered plea. Please, if anyone sees my daughter, bring her to light. Do not let them silence her like they did me. The video went viral within an hour. Number Bring Itoro Home, number Trash Shoe Girl, number The Mother Returns, trending across the continent. Powerful Lagos elites, old money, church leaders, former lovers of Ukpong, all jolted by the return of a face they had buried in memory. Donations poured into Tife's foundation. Reporters flocked to Itoro's last known locations. In a dimly lit private lounge on Banana Island, Tife Onakoya sat in tailored silk, her rings glinting under the chandelier. Around her, politicians, oil barons, security chiefs. Voices hushed. She lit a cigar with trembling fingers. She cannot be allowed to speak again, she hissed. Her face had hardened into a mask of arrogance and desperation. They nodded. The story is out, one said. We bury the source, she snapped. Meanwhile, Tife uncovered what would break the city in two, a hidden paper trail. His cybersecurity head cracked a file hidden deep in an old estate server. Osareme's name appeared dozens of times on orphanage registers, medical transfer slips, child labor schemes masked as education programs. Itoro had been placed on one of those ledgers, long ago set for relocation. But someone Nene had smuggled her out and faked her death. Tife's stomach turned. His own board had funded some of these foundations. A name glared back at him: Chief Gboyega Benson, his board chairman, longtime family friend. That night, Tife entered a glass conference room. Gboyega stood, surprised. Tife, what's this about? I want the truth, Tife said, his voice flat. Gboyega tried to smile. She's a distraction, son. Don't destroy yourself over a maid. Tife slammed the matching shoe on the glass table. She's my mother's daughter. And you signed her death warrant. Gboyega paled. Elsewhere in Lagos, Itoro had taken refuge in what she thought was an abandoned warehouse. Her legs gave way. She crawled into the shadows, her heartbeat deafening. Then she heard a voice. A girl. Another. Whispers. Shapes moving in the dark. Her eyes adjusted. She was not alone. Dozens of girls. Teens. Preteens. Some barefoot. Some holding scraps. One girl clutched a necklace, a locket with IMO engraved. Itoro gasped. That was Ukpong's. The girl, maybe 12, dark-skinned, wide eyes, looked up. The woman who gave me this, said someone would come. A miracle threaded through their connection. Itoro broke down, holding her hand. Then the sound of an engine, men shouting, doors locked. Someone had set a trap. Tife received the GPS ping. His team was en route. The screen showed the warehouse. Coordinates matched. He raced to the SUV, Ukpong's photo clutched in his hand, shouting orders. But as his car neared the warehouse perimeter, the horizon lit in flame. A deafening explosion ripped the air. Fire rose like judgment. The warehouse was gone. Black smoke painted the sky. Tife stumbled out of the car. Screamed. Itoro! He ran toward the flames, arms held back by his guards. His breath caught. The girl with the shoes, the girl who gave Lagos hope, had disappeared again. The warehouse explodes moments before Tife arrives. Was Itoro still inside? The fire was still burning when they found her barely conscious, body curled behind the remains of a steel shelf. Her face was streaked with soot, lips cracked, the torn shoes melted at the soles. Itoro Ukpong coughed violently as hands reached to pull her out. She tried to resist, afraid the fire had come for her soul too. But the voice was soft, trembling. "You helped me, now I help you." The voice belonged to Blessing, the young girl who wore Imobong's locket, the one who had shielded Itoro just before the explosion. She had pulled her by the arm through a hole in the back wall moments before everything collapsed. Outside, sirens screamed. Tife stood surrounded by medics and security, fists clenched in agony until he saw her, carried in the arms of a first responder, alive, coughing, barely breathing, but alive. His knees buckled. He stumbled forward. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. The media descended in drones. Girl in torn shoes survives bombing. The trash shoe girl lives. Warehouse of horror, dozens rescued. The girls were taken to safety, emaciated, bruised, terrified. Tife opened the Onakoya estate, transforming the guest houses and gardens into healing quarters. Doctors, therapists, mentors poured in. The smell of trauma and herbs filled the air, but there was something else. Hope. Itoro woke up in a hospital room. The morning sun filtered through white blinds. Beside her, Imobong sat in silence, hands trembling, heart open, eyes full of pain and grace. They stared at each other, no words. Then, tears. Then sobs. Then embrace. Mother and daughter. 20 years stolen by silence, given back by a miracle. Elsewhere, Tife Onakoya's empire crumbled. Her personal assistant, a young woman named Rita, turned whistleblower. Audio recordings of meetings, copies of ledger books, shipping manifests. She had kept everything afraid, but always ready. With the world watching, she uploaded the documents to an encrypted link shared with EFCC and international media. Tife was arrested in her Banana Island mansion. The cameras rolled as she was led out in silk robes, gold chains removed from her wrists like shackles. The same woman who once controlled billionaire deals now stood alone. Tife announced his resignation the same day. In front of a packed press room, he said, "My legacy is not just fintech. My legacy is memory, truth, and the woman who gave me life and then lost hers trying to protect mine." He stepped down as CEO and launched the Imobong Foundation, a safe haven for trafficked girls and a legal advocacy center for abandoned children. The mission was clear: no more silent shoes. Itoro spent weeks in therapy. Her body healed faster than her mind. The scars inside were louder, being called trash girl, sleeping under bridges, the grip of kidnappers, the screams of the other girls in the warehouse. But slowly, with time, she began to speak, in soft circles of women, then at a local church, then in schools. Her voice was not polished, not rehearsed, but it was real. "I carried my mother's shoes because they reminded me I wasn't abandoned, just hidden." Her words spread like wildfire. The media renamed her the girl who wore strength. Montages played across screens, girls in school uniforms being handed books, villages with solar panels installed by the foundation, women stepping out of abusive homes into shelters, a girl with burns on her arms now laughing in a painting class, a former trafficker confessing and turning witness. Pain had turned into policy, silence had turned into systems. At night, in the garden of the Onakoya estate, Tife and Itoro walked beneath soft lanterns. She wore simple Ankara gowns now, hair braided back, the new shoes gifted by a survivor, but she still kept the torn pair on her shelf preserved in a glass box. A monument. They read books together, talked about dreams, shared Imobong's old letters, tattered pages written in slanted script, filled with lullabies, proverbs, and love. Some made them laugh, some made them cry. One night, after a long silence, Tife whispered, "Do you think we were meant to find each other?" Itoro looked at him, eyes shining. "I think we were meant to remember." The day of the Foundation's first gala arrived. Guests arrived in gold and ivory. The ballroom was lit with candles and holograms of change. Children's artwork adorned the walls. Women from across Nigeria took the stage. Tife stood in a black tuxedo, holding back tears as survivors told their stories. In the middle of the celebration, he slipped away to his old study, drawn by instinct, drawn by absence. He opened a drawer and found an envelope. Old, faded, handwritten, to be opened only if she returns. Signed by his late father. On the night of the Foundation's first gala, Tife finds an old envelope from his late father marked, "To be opened only if she returns." The old envelope sat heavily in Tife Onakoya's hand. The edges were cracked, the paper yellowed, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Adebayo Onakoya, his late father. The man who had raised him with strict rules, who had never spoken of his mother, who had always looked through him like he carried too much of her. Tife slid it open, trembling. Inside were 5 pages, written in blue ink, each word sinking like lead in his chest. "My son, if you're reading this, she has returned, and so has the truth." Tife sat back in his leather chair, the gala music drifting faintly from the ballroom below. His fingers clutched the letter. He kept reading. "Imayobong was the best part of me. I loved her the moment I saw her barefoot in a village school, reading to children with a smile I could never afford. I married her despite the whispers. They called her a village girl. I called her Grace. But Grace, my son, is not welcome in palaces built on pride." The words blurred as tears filled Tife's eyes. His father had once fought for love but failed. "They told me if I stayed married to her, I'd lose everything. The board, the estate, the name. They pushed Osarame to me like a contract, a partnership forged in wealth and reputation. I didn't resist hard enough. Osarame found out about my offshore slush fund money I used to bribe customs and secure the land that built our first tower. She used it. She said she'd bury me unless I gave her the house, and let Imobong disappear quietly." Tife's breath hitched. The letter trembled in his grip. His father didn't just let Imobong vanish. He arranged it. "I asked Nene to ensure the child was safe. I never imagined she would survive. But I had already died by then, son. The man you knew was only a shadow." The letter ended with, "I hope she forgives me. I do not deserve it. But perhaps you can." Tife dropped the letter on his desk and wept. Not silent tears, but guttural sobs. Generational guilt pounded through his veins. His wealth, every naira, was birthed in betrayal. And now, the empire of his ancestors stood on bones. The next day, he walked into the estate's ancestral home, his grandfather's original house. Gold-rimmed portraits stared down at him, chests of antique coins, leather-bound books, imported wines unopened for decades. He stood in the middle of the grand hall and made a call. That week, the estate was signed over, transferred into the ownership of the Imayobong Foundation. The mansion, once a shrine to ego, would now serve as a rescue shelter for abused women and displaced girls. Reporters flooded the gates. Photographers clicked as workers stripped gold wallpaper and replaced it with bright murals painted by rescued children. The Onakoya name would no longer mean secrecy. It would mean sanctuary. At the hospital, Itoro sat beside Imayobong's bed. The old woman's hands were thin, her breaths shallow, her skin darker than before but peaceful. In her lap sat the letter. She had read it, every word. Itoro had as well. She looked at her mother, the woman who gave her up to save her, and whispered, "I don't hate him." Imayobong's lips moved. "Why?" Itoro pressed the torn shoes against her chest. "Because what they built with blood, I'll wash with grace." News broke the following evening. Supreme Court Justice Adenike Balogun, known for her fearlessness, held a press conference. Live, national television, global stream. She announced, "We are reopening the case of Imayobong Onakoya. The silence ends now." A Supreme Court judge announces a public reopening of the case of Imayobong Onakoya live on national television. The courthouse doors opened early that morning, sun slanting through the pillars, the air buzzing with anticipation. National media vans were already parked on the stone steps, camera crews setting up, lights glinting off microphones, echoes of distant chants, "Justice for Imabong, Trash Shoe Girl lives." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Judges in black robes, lawyers in crisply pressed suits, families in muted colors, survivors in gowns patched with love. In the front row sat Itoro Ukpong and Imayobong, both dark ebony skin shining under the soft courtroom lighting. Each wore the torn shoes repaired, framed, held like talismans on their feet. Itoro's expression was steady, Imayobong's was pained but proud. At the witness stand, Tife Onakoya, dark black skin, sharp features, high brows furrowed, voice trembling with conviction. He addressed the judge. "Madam Justice, I used to believe legacy was about wealth, but I now stand here to say legacy is justice. My mother was taken, she was betrayed. The shoes she walked in, they never belonged to shame, they belonged to truth. He named names: Osoreme, past board members, trustees who had enabled trafficking rings disguised as charitable orphanages. The courtroom gasped. The crowd leaned forward. Outside, the press corps erupted at the steps. The flashing cameras captured Osoreme's arrival, escorted by stern officers. Makeup carefully laid, jewels glittering, her posture rigid, mask calm. But the eyes betrayed panic. She gave a brief statement. These claims are misleading. I stand innocent. But her voice lacked its old confidence. Inside, survivors' girls once trafficked, silenced, were being called to testify. Itoro watched as each one stepped forward, their shoulders trembling, their testimonies raw, full of pain. Some spoke of cold nights, of empty prayers, of shoes ripped from their feet. Others spoke of being sold, shuffled between orphanage registries, hidden in warehouses, their stories stitched together a tapestry of horror. Osoreme's defense tried to twist it. These girls are misled. They want fame. But then came Rita's recording. Osoreme's personal assistant leaked audio where Osoreme spoke of shutting screens, burning documents, silencing witnesses. The judge's gavel nearly cracked under the weight of her lies exposed. Then the moment of supreme shock. Osoreme collapsed mid-trial. Her face went pale. She pressed a hand to her chest. Somewhere near a shuttle of whispered gasps. Medics rushed in. Phones recorded. She was carried out, unconscious. The courtroom stood still. Imeobong, in her seat, gasped. Itoro stood, heart pounding, rushed forward as security physically kept her back. The judge suspended proceedings. Osoreme's collapse felt like the physical manifestation of her guilt. When the court reconvened the next day, the tapestry of evidence was overwhelming. Imeobong's name was cleared publicly, legally, honored in the judgment. The judge's voice echoed, "No longer shall women erased by power remain invisible. Your mother's dignity, her truths, restored." Outside, crowds gathered, placards held high, tears of relief, of triumph. The judge declared a national day of recognition for all women erased by power, women whose voices were stolen, whose stories were buried. In the afterglow, at the press conference, gold and white banners fluttered, logos of the foundation visible. Journalists leaned forward. Tife stood behind a podium, but not alone behind him. Itoro and Imeobong, survivors, sisters, mother and daughter, bound by pain and hope. The air smelled of rain-washed air, fresh after a downpour, symbolic cleansing. A choir sang in the background. Women in rescued homes stood, holding hands, in bright clothing now, shoes sturdy. Then, among the crowd, a stranger, dark ebony skin, hood pulled low, voice soft, walked up to Itoro as she stepped off stage. He leaned close, whispered, "Your mother saved mine too. But there's one more truth." Itoro froze, her eyes wide. A hush spread across the room. Curious whispers rippled. At the press conference, a stranger walks up to Itoro and whispers, "Your mother saved mine too. But there's one more truth." The stranger's eyes held a quiet storm. "She saved my mother once when no one else would," he said. His name was Kelechi Morty, a man in his late 30s with deep-set eyes, skin black as polished stone, and a voice heavy with memory. She hid something the world needs to see. He led Itoro and Tife north through early morning mist, across highways, past farmland, until they reached an abandoned boarding school near Ogun State. Ivy crept up its crumbling walls, the windows dark, the corridors musty with time. In the main hall, Kelechi pulled up rotted floorboards, revealing a rusted hatch. Beneath, a hidden basement, dry, sealed, untouched for years. Inside were boxes of journals, handwritten letters, newspaper clippings, photographs, and audio cassettes. Each piece meticulously labeled by Imeobong, decades earlier, during her years as the wife of a rising billionaire before she was silenced. The air was thick with dust and secrets. They sat on cracked wooden floors, opening files. Page after page detailed a hidden world, an elite trafficking network hidden behind orphanages, international NGOs, and foundations. There were names, bank accounts, shipping manifests, dates, photos, and the worst shock. Tife Onakoya was just one node in a web that included retired generals, former senators, a Supreme Court judge, and a Nollywood actor beloved across the continent. Imeobong had once tried to expose them. That was why she vanished. Tife stood in stunned silence. His hands trembled as he picked up a photo of a girl no older than 12, barefoot, standing beside a man in political robes. The caption on the back, in Imeobong's script, read, "She never made it back." Tife turned to Itoro. "We have enough to take down half the elite class. Then let's finish what she started." They drove back to Lagos that night, their trunk filled with boxes of damning evidence. Lawyers were summoned, copies made, encryption protocols activated. They filed notices with EFCC, ICPC, and international watchdog agencies. The press got wind. Headlines screamed across platforms. "Shoes that shook Nigeria. Wife of a billionaire buried elite secrets in the floor. Trash shoe girl uncovers a nation's shame." Retaliation came quickly. Tife's personal and corporate accounts were frozen under a fabricated fraud investigation. His company's app was pulled from the fintech market. Board members resigned. Threats came in the form of silence, prominent business allies suddenly unreachable. Itoro received an envelope of cash in her mailbox, no note. Just the implication. She held it up during a live Instagram broadcast. "They think my silence can be bought," she said, voice calm. "But my silence costs more than your legacy." The video went viral. A documentary team from France, 2, 4, and Al Jazeera began following them, capturing their movements, interviewing survivors, filming from the basement in Ogun. The story had gone global. Meanwhile, Imeobong's health began to decline. Her breathing became shallow, her steps slower. She refused to sleep in a hospital. Instead, she stayed in the shelter surrounded by the same girls she once tried to save. They now sat by her bedside, reading her stories, massaging her feet, placing the repaired shoes beside her pillow. She smiled through the pain. "I just want to see the truth walk free before I leave." Then came the call. Official. Direct. From the presidency. An invitation. No reason given. But clear. Itoro Ukpong and Tife Onakoya were summoned to ASO Rock Presidential Villa. The president himself invites Tife and Itoro to ASO Rock for reasons unknown. The gates of ASO Rock Presidential Villa opened under the weight of history. Flashbulbs lit the walkways. Military guards stood in attention. Cameramen scrambled as the dignitaries arrived. International reporters lined the marble steps. But all eyes were on two people, Itoro Ukpong, now a symbol of survival, and Tife Onakoya, once a billionaire, now a man reborn. Inside the presidential banquet hall, gold-accented chairs filled the space. Above the podium hung a massive digital banner. National Honor Ceremony for Imeobong Onakoya, a daughter, a mother, a light. The president stepped up to the microphone. His voice, usually sharp, softened. "Today, we honor not just a woman, but a movement. Imeobong Onakoya represents the courage of our forgotten daughters. Her name shall now stand for shelter, healing, and hope." He paused. "And today, the largest women's recovery center in Abuja will be renamed the Imeobong National Shelter for Daughters of Nigeria." The crowd erupted in applause. Some wept. Some bowed their heads. On stage, Itoro stood tall in a flowing ivory dress, her skin radiant against the light. In front of her, encased in glass on a white pedestal, sat the torn shoes now repaired, restored, polished. The very shoes that had once defined her suffering now stood as a national relic. She took the mic. Her voice, strong, clear, shaking only slightly. "I was once told I was trash, because I carried these shoes from a garbage heap, but what they didn't see was that they weren't garbage. They were proof of a woman who refused to vanish, of love that refused to be silenced." She turned to the president. "And today, these shoes no longer walk alone. They carry a nation." The hall fell silent. Then Tife stepped forward. He wore a deep green agbada, embroidery glowing with gold trim. In his hands was a second glass box. Everyone watched, breath held. "Itoro," he said, kneeling, "you taught me that legacy is not in wealth but in the steps we take for others." He opened the box. Inside were the repaired shoes from their very first meeting, the ones she had picked from the trash. "I do not offer a ring," he whispered. I offer you these because they carried you to me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Flashbulbs went off. The crowd stood in thunderous ovation. Their story, broadcast across every major network, became a tale whispered in churches, played in classrooms, debated in political forums. Justice, love, betrayal, rebirth. It was said even grandmothers in villages named their daughters Itoro. Musicians wrote songs, artists painted murals, and the hashtag number shoes that changed Nigeria broke global records. Flash forward montage. Girls in torn sandals, sitting in solar-lit classrooms, learning coding, women leaving shelters, holding business grants, smiling as they cut ribbons. Schoolgirls in rural Kano chanting, Imeobong lives. Women from Somalia, Ghana, and Kenya sending letters to the foundation. The Onakoya mansion, once a shrine of silence, was now Nigeria's biggest recovery and skills center. Its gates opened every morning to new faces, new daughters of destiny. Tife, driven by a new fire, accepted an appointment from the president, becoming Minister for Digital Equity. He launched Africa's first AI-driven system for tracking missing girls. He went from building apps to building hope. And Itoro, now an author, activist, and speaker, published her memoir, The Girl in Her Mother's Shoes. It sold across the world, translated into over 30 languages. In the final scene, Itoro stands in front of a chalkboard. Her hair is braided, her voice calm. She's teaching a class of rescued girls, each one with her own torn shoes. She holds up the repaired pair. These were never trash, she says softly. They were always a torch. She picked them from the dirt, but they carried the footprints of destiny. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave a comment. We read every one. Subscribe for more powerful stories that stir your soul and inspire change. Like this video if you believe no voice is too small to change the world. Share this with someone who needs to remember that pain can lead to purpose.